After being taken into custody to determine his immigration status, it was discovered Mayer had guns in the USA, something he admitted himself days before. This gave American authorities leverage to keep Mayer in custody, which allowed them to verify his identity without the chance of him escaping their grasp, something that Fast Eddie had originally done after committing the theft. Mayer had 2 pistols under his bed, with 2 rifles at a storage facility, as relayed to the authorities by Debbie. It had seemed Debbie was being much more cooperative than Mayer was, which went with Mayer and Debbie's personalities. Debbie was friendly and talkative, whereas Mayer was stoic and serious. Lee was illustrated in his father's capture, which quickly became a hot topic amongst the press circles reporting on Mayer's arrest.
What is this kid seems to be the unbelievable pathological liar? What is going on with this guy? And isn't he kind of the reason that Fast Eddie Mayer's cover got blown in the first place?
He is. It seems that Slow Lee King, as you call him, just couldn't really keep his mouth shut.
Mayer received his first set of charges in late February of 2012. The UK was also beginning to file charges against Mayer at this time, and there was now a growing need for the British public to see Mayer return to the UK to find out more about the man that had seemingly vanished with £1 million 19 years prior. A few months after Mayer being extradited to the UK, Mayer was set for a trial date in September 2012, the fateful date where Mayer was set to plead guilty. The local media were ready to run reports on Mayer getting his jail sentence. If Mayer were to plead guilty, he'd get a third of his sentence shaved off, something that was likely very appealing to him. After various delays of the trial, it was finally happening at Ipswich Crown Court. Judge John Devoe presided over the trial, asking Mayer what his plea was. Mayer appeared on a television screen, with sound problems preventing the court from hearing his plea. After twice having sound problems, Mayer gave his plea. Not guilty. A shocking turn of events. The press and the police were not expecting Mayer to try and plead not guilty, and due to the lack of hard evidence, it would seem that Mayer may even get away with his defence of being under duress. Mayer claimed the duress defence. He said his family had been threatened by 3 unknown men in 1993, referencing the 1991 firebombing of his pub in Kent. Police had to pull down Mayer's defence by proving that Mayer had profited from the theft, something that doesn't usually happen to someone held under duress. Hard evidence was difficult for the police to come by, with some of it being destroyed or hard to access. They also didn't have a solid line of witnesses to question in court, unlike the defence. Police were also worried about Mayer using his public fame to steer the verdict in his favour, through the jury.
He wasn't looked of as a criminal, more of a hero. I know it sounds really stupid, but yeah.
If you're not satisfied beyond all reasonable doubt, you have to find the person not guilty. So, having read this defence case statement, the management and the CPS sort of like, actually there's a real good chance he could get off this, because a jury might not believe him fully, but they might not step over that threshold of beyond all reasonable doubt.
At the end of 2012, Suffolk Police put together an investigation team for the case, due to the strong chance of it being dropped. The next trial date was set for the 4th of March 2013. The police had 4 months to tear down the case that Mayer's defence team had built up. CI David Charles and DS Stephen Bunn were chosen to lead the new investigation team.
I was called here and sat down with my bosses to say, right, we want you to read this defence case statement. So I read it and was like, okay, there's a chance he could get off here. And they said yes, and you're given the job of making sure he gets convicted.
While Giles and Bunn were in the USA, they found evidence that Mayer had bought the $120,000 house in Woodland Park, Colorado, whilst in £10,000 debt, which is something that voided Mayer's claim of duress. After the officers visited Mayer's ranch and found that Mayer had also purchased land and the ranch after living in the Woodland Park house, Giles and Bunn returned to the UK at the end of January, 20 years after the theft. Only a week after the officers returned from their USA trip, the defence team of Eddie Mayer sent a letter to the investigative police team indicating Mayer wanted to change his plea to guilty. This was a monumental success for the Suffolk police, as it meant that they had finally caught Mayer out, and now they were going to catch their man. Thankfully, they would now avoid the potential embarrassment that was so close to fruition earlier in the case.
At the risk of the reputation of the constabulary and of the CPS, having somebody who said, yeah, I drove off with £1 million and I took the money to America and I lived there for 20 years, I did it, and we don't end up convicting him, we'd look a bit silly, wouldn't we?
The 5th of March 2013, Southwark Crown Court. Reporters waited anxiously outside the entrance of the court, anticipating the arrival of Mayer and his family. After what felt like an eternity of waiting, Debbie and Mark showed up, heading to court around 9:15 a.m., 45 minutes before the trial was planned to begin. It was the first time Mayer's family had attended any of Mayer's court dates in person, and the press was quick to take videos and footage of them, pressing them to answer questions and give answers that both the media and the public desperately craved.
Because what people are interested in is, where had Mayer been? What sort of lifestyle was he living? What was he doing? What was he like? Were the family quite guarded? Were they quite open? How were they integrated into, the American lifestyle?
But Debbie and Mark remained silent, proceeding into the court as if the press weren't even there. As the courtroom unlocked at 9:30 a.m, Debbie quickly took a seat as closest to Mayer as she could get, sitting next to her younger son Mark. Debbie was still wholly devoted to Mayer, and she was trying to support him as best as she could. The press were more than heavily interested in the case, with the press benches being full to the brim. Some journalists were forced to sit in the public gallery instead. Mayer arrived in the court 14 minutes late, due to delays, at 10:14 a.m. He appeared very affectionate with his family, them smiling and gesturing at each other at the start and end of the trial. It was clear that Mayer cared for his family, and his family cared for him. I'm sure the pressure caused by Mayer's capture and what this was doing to his family weighed heavy on Eddie Mayer's mind. Mr. Justice Nicol entered the room and went through court proceedings. After this, Mayer pled guilty to the theft, just as he had indicated he would do. After Mayer's plea, the story of his theft and his capture was recounted in a British court for the first time. During the recount, a young man entered the courtroom. It hadn't fazed the judge, and Mayer and his family didn't seem to notice. The young man was Lee King, Mayer's middle son, who had been free at the time of the theft, but at this point was a man in his 20s who had matured and grown into a young adult. Lee sat down in a seat separate from his mother and brother, perhaps implying a rift created between the family through Lee's part in Mayer getting caught by the authorities. However, Mayer gestured towards Lee affectionately as well as the rest of his family at the end of the trial. Mayer and Lee obviously shared an unconditional love, despite their strained relationship as a result of their arrest. As well as Mayer's own sentencing in court, there was confirmation of the parties who were being investigated into for aiding Mayer in the theft. Paul Muggleton, Terence Bender and Michael Solsh were connected with the case, as well as Mayer's own siblings Michael Mayer, who Mayer pretended to be whilst on the run, and Margaret Francis. Muggleton, Debbie and Margaret had been arrested and put on bail, while Michael Mayer's location was unknown at the time. Inquiries with Solsh, Bender and others were ongoing in connection to the theft. After 2 hours and 28 minutes of the trial, Mayer's sentence was decided. He was being given 5 years in jail for the theft, with his breach of trust and over £125,000 profit meaning he had a minimum of 3 years sentence. Following the trial, Lee, and Debbie with Mark, went their separate ways when leaving the court. They were living in separate addresses in the same town in Eastbourne, East Sussex, but it is unknown exactly why they were living separately. Perhaps Lee was housing his family from America at times in his own place, or he just wanted to live alone, or perhaps the aforementioned rift between the three as a result of Lee's role in Mayer's arrest meant Debbie needed time apart from Lee. The media coverage following the arrest was big, as was expected from the sentencing of such a high-profile criminal. Jessica, Lee's ex that turned Mayer in, appeared on ITV Daybreak a few days after the trial, saying she had turned Mayer in for fear of her life and thinking it was the moral decision. She claimed she was not motivated by the cash reward, responding she didn't even know if the reward was true, but it is unknown how true this claim of hers was considering she was in a lot of financial ruin, meaning a £100,000 reward would be a big incentive for her. A few months following the trial, it appeared that any leads on other parties involved with the theft were being dropped, albeit after lengthy investigations on the part of the police. Mayer was the only one being given lawful punishment. Mayer's charges were still not done though. In September of 2013, Mayer appeared at Ipswich Crown Court through video link from Belmarsh Prison, where he was being jailed. Mayer's £129,000 pension from the London Fire Service was seized, with £50,000 going to G4S, the company that was originally Securicor, and the remaining £79,000 going to Equitas insurers. Eddie Mayer had 6 months to pay this out, or he faced 2.5 more years being added onto his sentence. 2 years later, in January of 2015, Mayer was released from prison, around 22 years after his theft. He had only had to serve half of his sentence due to good behaviour, so he was let out earlier than the public expected. Arguably, he got a lighter punishment than many wanted.
I definitely think he got off that really lightly, yeah, definitely.
Do I agree with it? The fact of the matter is the law is the law. Should it have been 7 years? Well, what else do you have to steal to get 7 years then? See what I mean? Not only was it a breach of trust, it was a big load of money.
Around the same time, Jessica finally received the payout she had been fighting for, though it was only a measly sum of £10,000, with G4S rewarding the money proportionate to the amount of money recovered from Mayer's pension fund. It is still unknown what happened to the money. We know that around £200,000 was taken by Mayer, but what happened to the rest of the money? Who took it? What was bought with it? Was it funded into the East London seedy criminal underworld? We might never know. Though with Mayer's new book released recently, these questions may be answered for us. In promotion for his new book, Eddie Mayer appeared for a short interview on ITV on the 28th of April 2017. His original claim of duress, that he was being threatened, along with his family, by 3 armed men to go through the security van theft, was put forward by Mayer both in the interview and in his new book. The public responded in a way that was mixed. There are a lot of people that believe Mayer was just protecting his family, or that he didn't hurt anyone so he didn't really do anything bad, and many criticised the way the interviewer Ruth Langsford interviewed Mayer. There was also a fair share of people that defended Langsford and condemned Fast Eddie. C.I. Giles commented on the book, both on ITV and also in my interview with him.
You can make a complaint now. He says he lived in fear. Well, he's not living in fear now, is he? He's put himself in the public domain. He's obviously not that scared, is he?